From the 12th through the 17th centuries, medieval England was ruled by absolute power, and betrayal was answered with unimaginable cruelty. This execution was not the usual fate of common criminals. It was reserved for traitors, those who conspired against the crown, plotted to dethrone the monarch, or committed acts of high treason. To challenge royal authority was to invite the most horrific punishment imaginable. At the time, treason was viewed as the ultimate crime. It was not simply a personal offense against the king or queen. It was considered a direct assault on the entire realm, an act capable of tearing the nation apart. The origins of the punishment, known as hanged, drawn, and quarter, date back to the 13th century under King Henry III. However, it was during the reign of King Edward I that the method became formally established. The belief was simple. The severity of the crime demanded an equally severe response. In an era where justice was performed before the eyes of the public, the crown sought more than death. It sought spectacle. These executions were meant to be seen, remembered, and feared. Their brutality was deliberate, ensuring the warning echoed throughout the kingdom. This was never just about killing. It was about disgrace, about turning the traitor into a living example of what awaited anyone who dared defy royal rule. The body itself became a symbol, a permanent reminder of betrayal's cost. This was not merely law. It was theater designed to terrify. The ordeal of being hanged, drawn, and quartered was exactly as horrific as the name suggests. It was slow, agonizing, and engineered to destroy both body and spirit long before death arrived. It began with the hanging. The condemned was paraded through the streets, often tied to a cart, while crowds gathered to witness the spectacle. At the execution site, they were suspended by the neck, long enough to suffocate but not long enough to die. This partial strangulation was meant to inflict pain while keeping the victim conscious for what came next. Then came the drawing. This stage involved disembowelment. Executioners tore out the organs, sometimes the heart, sometimes the intestines, and burned them before the watching crowd. It was meant to signify the erasure of the traitor's inner life, a public declaration that their body and soul were no longer their own. But the most chilling stage followed, quartering. The body was cut apart, often by tying the limbs to 4 horses positioned in different directions. When driven forward, the horses tore the body into pieces. These remains, the head, limbs, and torso, were sent across the kingdom and displayed as grotesque warnings. Often, the head was mounted on a pike or placed above city gates for all to see. The final purpose was clear. The traitor was not only executed, but humiliated. Their remains were paraded as a message from the crown. This is the fate of those who defy the state. Perhaps the most infamous victim of this punishment was William Wallace. Remembered today as the Scottish hero portrayed in Braveheart, Wallace led his people against English rule in the late 13th century. After several major victories, he was captured in 1305. His trial was a sham. Charged with treason against King Edward I, Wallace was denied any real defense. Though he fought for his homeland, he was branded a traitor. The sentence was inevitable. On August 23, 1305, Wallace was taken to Smithfield in London. There, he was hanged until nearly unconscious, then disemboweled before the crowd. His organs were burned, his body cut apart, and his head placed on a pike atop London Bridge, a brutal warning to all who might follow in his footsteps. Wallace's body was cut apart and sent to different regions of Scotland, a final act of humiliation against the man who had come to embody Scottish resistance. His death marked a tragic conclusion for someone who had sacrificed everything for his homeland, but it also secured his legacy as a lasting symbol of defiance against tyranny. Dafydd, the last sovereign prince of Gwynedd and Wales, stands as another tragic figure who met the brutal fate of hanging, drawing, and quartering. Renowned for his fierce resistance to English rule during the 13th century, he had long opposed King Edward I's expansion into Wales. His fate was sealed on October 3, 1283. Executed in a manner meant to match his defiance, he was punished as a prince who dared to challenge English authority. His death was intended as a warning to any who might consider rebellion. Dragged through the streets of Shrewsbury, he was hanged, drawn, and quartered. His body was cut into pieces, and his head placed on a pike in London, just as Wallace's had been before him. Dafydd's execution carried deep symbolic weight, as it marked the end of Welsh independence. His brutal death formed part of Edward I's broader campaign to crush resistance and bring Wales fully under English control. James Scott, Duke of Monmouth, was the illegitimate son of King Charles II and the leader of the Monmouth Rebellion in 1685. Seeking the English throne, his uprising was driven by his desire to take power from King James II, whose Catholic faith made him widely unpopular. Although Monmouth's forces achieved early success, a decisive defeat at the Battle of Sador led to his capture and trial. Monmouth was executed on July 15, 1685. While his death did not follow the exact ritual of hanging, drawing, and quartering, it still shared certain similarities. With a single stroke of the axe, his head was severed from his body. Though far quicker than the horrific medieval method, the public spectacle of his execution, combined with the dramatic collapse of his rebellion, made it infamous. His death signaled the brutal suppression of the uprising and demonstrated the strength of King James II's rule. In contrast to Wallace and Dafydd, Monmouth's execution was swift, yet the political message was the same. Rebellion against the crown would be met with merciless punishment. While hanging, drawing, and quartering remained the most gruesome punishment for traitors during the medieval and early modern eras, execution methods gradually changed as societies evolved. Many of the most barbaric practices fell out of favor. By the 19th century, Britain increasingly adopted methods considered more humane by contemporary standards. Hanging became the primary form of execution, and in 1965, the death penalty for murder was finally abolished in the United Kingdom. The shift from public executions to more private ones reflected changing attitudes. Where executions were once tools of fear and authority, they later came to be seen by many as cruel and outdated. The movement toward less brutal punishments and eventually toward abolition marked a fundamental change in social values. Yet even as these methods disappeared, the legacy of their cruelty continues to shape how capital punishment is viewed today.